The role of literature for me is essential, and by essential I mean that when I was a young child, maybe it's the first thing that I discovered with the feeling that my life would have something to do with that thing, that literature. At that time, of course, I didn't know it was called literature. It went through tales, through my grandmother's tales. But now I can say that it was a form of literature, an oral form. And then after that time of after childhood, I start reading. I start to just discover great books and great authors, and somehow I decide. No, I didn't decide. I just think that my mind and my sensibility was shaped by books, by imagination, by sentences, by rhythms. And for me, it means that it's my point of view on the world. What I mean is that to understand something, a political question, an existential question, a social question, my first option is to find out something in books, to open novels, to open essays, philosophy essays or literature, to discover and to understand things. I am not saying it's the best way to understand our complex world. I'm just saying that for me, it's the best way, the more accurate and appropriate way just for me, because my mind, my heart is shaped by that since my childhood. I mentioned my grandmother, but when I was a child, my mother, of course, was here. My aunts, many cousins, the women, of my family, were there around me, and I remember their voices. My first memories of literature are linked to the voices of the women of my family. It was home at night, and it was the time at the end of the day where I could allow myself to just be here and let a voice lead me to another place. It was very simple, very joyful, very impressive at the same time, sometimes very, very terrifying, because the tales are not just fairy tales or where everything ends with joy and happiness. It's not like that. Sometimes it was very terrifying as well. From one tale to another, I could be very joyful and happy, and the tale right after being very terrified and scared and saying, no, stop, I don't want to know the end of this tale. But of course I wanted to know the end of the tale. I had a favorite tale, but the very strange part is that my favorite tale was different from one night to another, because my grandmother could decide just to change something, and the night after another version of the same tale, and the night after it was my mother and not my grandmother, and it was another version as well. But I knew that it was the same tale, and I understood years later that what I used to call a tale was just the form of the tale, was just the person telling the tale. It's the real tale is that it's one person being in front of you and telling you something. That's the tale, not specifically the story. I mean, it's just the relation and the language and the rhythm and the atmosphere and the scene, the stage, which is created by the storyteller. That being said, the story of my favorite tale was a story between twins. One of them was very beautiful, the other one was not. The one who was beautiful wasn't very kind, very gentle. And the tale is just the story of a reversal. The way the sister, who is not very beautiful, become at the end the most respected and loved one. So it was something like that. This motif of twins is very traditional, and you have different kind of twins from the Bible, and Abel and Cain, and this situation where one twin is a symbol of something and another one is the opposite of something else. In my book, it's almost the same situation. One twin, one of them is Ousseynou Koumar, is the one who is the symbol of tradition, of African tradition, the one whose fate is just to stay there in the land, the traditional land, and to be just the one who take care of the tradition. And the other one is the one who is more open to the world. And the world is symbolized there by colonization, by the European education, by the French language, and the opposition is there. But what is, I think, interesting between those twins in my book is that their possible son, I mean, Eliman, might be a kind of, might be both. He had both parts. So it was a kind of the original cell, the cell which was not separated at the end, and Eliman is the son, but at the same time he is the origin of the twins at the same moment.
Je savais que je ne retournerais pas au Sénégal, Diégane. Ma rupture avec le pays avait été trop profonde et je sentais bien que ce malentendu ne se dissiperait pas avec le temps. Au contraire, il irait en se renforçant. C'est de ce malentendu que je devais naître comme écrivain. C'est de lui, après cette naissance, que je devais encore écrire. Tous mes livres, je le sentais avant d'en avoir écrit un seul, concerneraient cette rupture avec mon pays, avec les gens que j'y avais connus, avec mon père, avec Mamkoura, Yangoné, Tadib, mes marâtres, avec tous ces hommes et femmes rencontrés dans la rue ou à l'université le temps d'une nuit. J'écrirais sur ça et personne ne comprendrait. Tout le monde là-bas me haïrait pour une raison toute simple. Je n'aurais pas seulement trahi par l'écriture, j'aurais redoublé cette trahison en écrivant d'ailleurs. Mais soit, me disais-je.
Before coming to Paris, I knew Paris, but through literature. I read many books, many novels that took place in Paris. Of course, it wasn't the Paris of nowadays. I mean, it was a very ancient Paris. But I knew about Paris. I knew about the French culture, but through books, through Balzac or Victor Hugo or all these great writers. And I wanted to study literature, and I chose to study it in France, because they have a very specific cursus in France that doesn't exist in Senegal, where I could have just a very open perspective, on point of view on literature, the global literature. And that's what I wanted to do. I started to write in Paris. When I was a student, I read a lot, and one day I just feel that I had to write, to try something. I don't know if it's the only way, I'm not sure, but I'm sure about one thing is that, and this thing is that you can't write if you don't have time and spend a long time with books, reading books. And it was the most concrete effect for me. In my journey from Senegal to France, the books were my best friends, of course, but they were as well my leaders. They lead me through my own personal labyrinth and through the center of the labyrinth. And for me, the center of the labyrinth was writing. And I'm, of course, very grateful to the books and to all the people, my, professors, friends, who just, give me the opportunity to discover books, to discuss about literature, and to have some questions, very deep existential questions that became, years after, the one of the roots of my writing, I think. For me, solitude is at the same time a very specific thing for everyone, but at the same time, as a migrant, it meant a lot. I started to write because I was alone, because I felt a deep solitude, and I tried to find some voices, or I just tried to find sentences to express that solitude. I believe that literature starts with the feeling that you have lost something, and you are alone. I think both feelings are very important, and you start to write because you want to take back something that you felt that you lost it. But of course you can't take it back, it lost forever. And you have to seek out for that thing, look for it. And you have to do it alone. But it's a very paradoxical solitude. A book that I love very much from the Czech writer Bohumil Hrabal is a book whose title is Too Loud a Solitude. And I think we are all in that kind of situation. In a solitude, but a solitude where you can find many voices, many people, many friends. And it's, I think, our condition at the same time. Solitude, but at the same time the presence of our loved one, the presence of people who are dead. The invisibles are here, I think. And yes, of course, as a migrant, I felt it maybe, more deeply, because even the presence of my loved ones wasn't there. My family was in Senegal, my parents, my brothers, many friends. So I had to maybe dig further to find their voices. I had to dig further to find out my way through that labyrinth. But I understood years later that it's as well a very global situation. It's our human condition at the same time. Being lonely, looking for something lost. And it's not always sad. For me, it's the main point. I'm saying all of this, it looks very gloomy, very sad, but no, it can be very joyful. Looking for something lost can be joyful. Being alone can be a joyful experience as well. And that's also what I tried to express through writing, through my books.
Soit. J'écrirai donc comme on trahit son pays, c'est-à-dire comme on se choisit pour taire non le pays natal mais le pays fatal, la patrie à laquelle notre vie profonde nous destine depuis toujours, la patrie de l'intérieur, celle des souvenirs chaleureux et celle des ténèbres glacées, la patrie des rêves premiers, la patrie des peurs et des hontes ruisselant en troupeau sur les flancs de l'âme, la patrie de toute la chiennerie errante le long des nuits couleur pétrole, de rues blanches, de villes que même les fantômes auraient désertées. La patrie des visions cristallisées d'amour et d'innocence, mais la patrie aussi de la folie rieuse et des entassements de crâne et de la lucidité impitoyable qui dévore le foie. La patrie de toute la solitude possible et de tout le silence disponible. La seule patrie que je trouvais habitable. Et par habitable, je veux dire impossible à perdre ou à haïr, impossible à exposer à une nostalgie sentimentale et superficielle, impossible à prendre comme prétexte ou otage en vue d'accrocher la gratifiante breloque de l'exil à sa poitrine et, enfin, la patrie impossible à défendre, puisqu'elle se défend toute seule de ses imprenables contreforts et n'exige de sacrifice que celui de notre paresse et de nos envies de faire l'amour tout le temps.
What I left in Senegal, what I left in my childhood, what I left in my family is lost now. Of course, there is something else that remains, but there is something else that I lost very clear. But of course, the people, my family there in Senegal, lost something else, something from me, and they will never take it back. They can't have it back, and I miss something, they miss something. It's at the same time the tragedy of being a migrant, leaving. It's the tragedy of leaving, because when you leave, at the same time you take with you something that you can't you can't give it back. And by leaving, there is something that you will never know. Something, even if people tell you, your family tell you, your mother calls you and tell you, okay, this happened and that happened, but you know that you missed the experience of being there. That is lost forever, and you have to accept it. And I think that as a writer is a very powerful reason to write, just to say, okay, there is something lost, but I'm not the only one who lost something. And it's interesting to find the relation between the lost things, the lost experiences from one side or another. It creates the opportunity to have some discussions, and of course to have very strong misunderstanding. It creates something, of course. Losing something creates something. It's very, very, very simple, and it's basically the core of the novel. The whole novel is about a lost book and a lost author, and every character just try to discover what the book is about, what the lost book or the lost author is about, or what the lost book means to him or her. And the book is, it is lost. In the book, we don't read the book apart from the first sentence, but the whole book is lost. We just read it through the feeling it creates on characters. But yeah, the book is lost, and it's because it's lost that my book can exist. And it's the dialectic of losing and finding out something. Yambo Ologem was a Malian author. He published in 1968 his first novel, Bound to Violence. The novel won the Prix Renaudot in France, a very important literary prize. Wologem was praised in the first time, and then 2 years after, there was those kind of allegation of plagiarism, very violent, coming from the French literary milieu. And after that, Wologem tried to defend himself, but the accusations were very violent and racist, and he just gave up. I mean, he said, okay, I gave up, I stopped writing, and he went back to Mali and remained silent until his death in 2017. I think Wologem believed that literature could protect him, saying that, yeah, I'm in a kind of a playful writing with the European canon, literary canon. I come from an African literary canon, but I also possess the European literary canon, and I can play with both. I can mix both. I can create something else from what both offers me. But he just discovered that as an African, it's not always easy to say, okay, I'm playing with another canon, and more specifically, I'm playing with the European canon. At that time, then, now it's possible, I think, and that maybe it's the main difference between Wologem and I, for example. We are not in the same situation, but I can feel sometimes that what happened to him can happen to someone else. Another African writer, even now. Because literature can be very beautiful place, but at the same time, it's not always a safe place when you can do everything you want. If you don't come from the beautiful side or the good side of a kind of a line that exists. Literature is a political thing as well. I wish the political dimension wasn't that that's harsh sometimes for some people. What I discovered through all this experience after the Goncourt Prize and years before the Goncourt Prize, when I was writing that book, when I was reading Wologem, rereading him, and trying to find out the secret or the key of his fate, what I discovered is very simple, is that literature is not apart from political structure that shape our world now. It's not because it's literature, very beautiful ideas about universality, about dialogues between cultures. It's not, literature doesn't protect us from reproducing some kind of domination relation. It's not it's not the place when you can find peace. If you are in the bad side, the wrong side of a symbolic line, a symbolic and political line. Of course, I'm very happy with that prize. I'm very happy with the Goncourt. I'm very happy with the whole experience. I see the book traveling through countries, through languages. It's very beautiful. Of course, it's some great honor for me. But I always remember Wologam. I think about him a lot, really. And I think that maybe this Goncourt was possible for me because 60 years ago he went through that bad and violent experience. I'm grateful to him for his book, not for the fate and all this violent situation, but for the book he wrote, because the book is still here and I can read it and I can see what he tried to do as a writer. And I think that is a very beautiful gift. And my hope is that, I don't know, for the next years, some young African writers could use Wologam's book or mine to do something else and to feel free to do it without forgetting where they come from and the dangers here sometimes, but just doing it, trying to do it as a writer and just say to the whole world, we are writers and we can use every canon we want, we can just create what we want. And I think it's the most beautiful part of that story, going from Wologam to me and going and continuing. Before writing, I still am a reader. I mean, and it's the core of my relation to literature. So if I go home one day, I will just have my books with me and read, and being very, very happy. It's let's hope it won't happen in violent situation, but if it's the case, I will still have my books and just the authors and books that I love, and for me it's enough.
Quelle est donc cette patrie? Tu la connais. C'est évidemment la patrie des livres, les livres lus et aimés, les livres lus et honnis, les livres qu'on rêve d'écrire, les livres insignifiants qu'on a oubliés et dont on ne sait même plus si on les a ouverts un jour, les livres qu'on prétend avoir lus, les livres qu'on ne lira jamais, mais dont on ne se séparerait non plus pour rien au monde, les livres qui attendent leur heure dans une nuit patiente avant le crépuscule des lectures d'aube. Oui, disais-je, oui, je serai citoyenne de ce royaume-là, de cette patrie-là, je ferai allégeance à ce royaume, le royaume de la bibliothèque.